prisoners. However, in the final leg of this brief pause, Israeli Prime Minister once again echoed the war rhetoric, saying that Israel will fight till the end. This despite mediation efforts that continue to extend the truce. We'll bring you all the updates on this on the show.
And while we track all that's happening in West Asia, also we take a look at reports that the US had thwarted an assassination attempt against Khalistani terrorist Gurpatwant Singh Pannu on US soil. Now, as per the Indian Ministry of External Affairs, a high-level inquiry committee will look into the inputs provided by the United States. Will these developments strain the ties India has with the US? We will be looking at this and a lot more in the next 60 minutes right here on World DNA. First, the headlines.
Hamas claims 10-month-old baby, Israel's youngest hostage, reportedly killed in Gaza bombing alongside mother and brother. Israel's IDF is examining Hamas's claims.
As part of Group 6, Israel frees 30 Palestinian prisoners early Thursday, soon after Hamas hands over 16 hostages to Red Cross in Gaza, including 10 Israelis, 4 Thais and 2 Russians.
Several Indian states resort to overhauling their medical infrastructure in view of the mysterious pneumonia outbreak in China.
Following high-octane campaign, Indian state of Telangana goes to polls today. Stage set for voting to elect 119 upcoming state legislature members.
Annual Climate Summit COP28 begins in the UAE's Dubai today. India's Prime Minister Modi to be present at the conference from November 30th to the 1st of December. This visit comes on the heels of India's G20 presidency.
Manchester United are on the brink of elimination from the Champions League after twice blowing a 2-goal lead to draw 3-3 at Galatasaray.
Towards Onana! Oh, he's let another one through! Ziyech has done it!
Now, of course, let's start by bringing you all the developments from the final phase of the extended truce. More Gaza hostages were freed on Wednesday as mediators raced to broker another extension to the truce between Israel and Hamas.
And of course, this hours before it was due to expire. Underscoring the urgency, US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken arrived in Israel for talks on aid for Gaza and the truce, but in a sign of the challenges facing the negotiators. A Hamas source stated that the militant group were not satisfied with Israel's proposals for another extension.
Now, as per media reports, Israel's war cabinet was meeting late Wednesday over proposals to extend the truce. Speaking to news agency AFP, a Hamas source expressed dissatisfaction regarding the proposals in the discussions to extend the truce.
As talks continued, 10 Israeli hostages arrived in Israel. Among them were 5 women, 3 children and 2 18-year-old men.
Another 4 Thai hostages were also released, along with 2 women holding dual Russian and Israeli citizenship outside the terms of the deal.
Now, the release of the 2 women was described by Hamas as an recognition of the efforts of Russian President Vladimir Putin.
In return, according to Qatari Foreign Ministry, Israel released 30 Palestinians, 14 women and 16 minors, that is.
Alongside emotional reunions, there were fresh reminders of the tragic stakes of the conflict. Israel's army stated it was probing a report by Hamas that a 10-month-old baby who was held hostage, his 4-year-old brother and their mother had all been killed in the bombing in Gaza.
In a statement, it is said that it is assessing the accuracy of the information. With tensions high, the Palestinian Health Ministry in the West Bank stated the Israeli army shot and killed an 8-year-old boy and a teenager. The military said troops had responded with live fire after explosive devices had been hurled at them.
The World Food Programme has warned Gaza's population faces a high risk of famine if the humanitarian organization is not able to provide continued access to food.
The spokesperson for the Hamas-run territory's health ministry said doctors found 5 premature babies dead in Gaza's Al-Nasser hospital.
According to the UN, an estimated 1.7 million Palestinians in Gaza have been forced to leave their homes so far, more than half the territory's population. Now, the truce between Israel and Hamas is still holding out. As a result, over 60 Israelis and 180 Palestinian prisoners have been released so far.
Now, the scenes of tearful family reunions evoked emotions of happiness, relief, mixed with, of course, anxiety and fear of what's to come. But what hostages and prisoners have been revealing, that's quite the opposite.
Israelis have been held hostage since the October 7th attacks. According to Hamas, the prisoners were kept in quote-unquote safe places within Gaza. However, we're talking about the hostages which were kept in Gaza. However, no one knows in which part of Gaza these so-called safe places are located. But one can get an idea about the conditions at these places through the first-hand account of released hostages and their relatives.
Now, the aunt of a released 12-year-old French hostage says her nephew experienced horrors that no one should.
Ethan apparemment a passé des horreurs là-bas. Le Hamas ISIS, il est obligé de voir le film d'horreur que personne ne veut voir. Il est obligé à regarder ça.
According to the account by Israeli families, women and children who have been released are sharing harrowing details of being beaten and threatened with death. They were forced to whisper during the weeks that they spent in Gaza, and the families of 2 girls who were recently released say their children are speaking only in whispers now.
One can only understand the trauma that they've endured. Further, officials at Israeli hospitals say hostages experienced poor nutritional health and many with chronic diseases were denied medical treatment, causing serious health problems. Daughter of a released 84-year-old hostage says they are being held in terrible conditions.
We didn't want them to become a symbol. We didn't want that Hamas will use that because they are a symbol, they will use that to do a harder negotiation. The kids, you don't need to negotiate about it. I don't know what Hamas was thinking when they kidnapped Kfir and Ariel. What they're afraid of.
As per the agreement, Israel has also released around 180 Palestinian prisoners. Stories of Palestinians about the hideous conditions within Israeli prisons are equally terrifying. They have spoken about aggression in the Israeli prisons.
احنا ما فيش عندنا ولا اي شيء، كل نضالات الاسرى انسحبت. قمع دائما 24 ساعه في قوات القمع جاهزه، اذا علي صوت الاسيرات لمره واحده بس كان يدخلوا قوات القمع. ما في اخبار، احنا كانوا الصبايا منقطعين بشكل كلي عن العالم، ما كنا نعرف مين رح يطلع مين لا، بس احنا كنا كل يوم نستنى ايش رح يصير. بس كل هاي اللحظات كل شيء حسينا فيه، بس شفنا شعبنا كيف مستنين على أحر من الجمر. كل هاي اللحظات كل هذا الألم بيروح.
Meanwhile, talks are also underway about a second extension of the truce. If the temporary ceasefire continues for another 4 days, more hostages and prisoners could be released on both the sides. Israel says for every additional release of 10 of its hostages, the truce could be extended for 1 more day. Hamas took over 240 hostages from southern Israel in the October 7th attack.
With the exchange of the last batch of hostages and prisoners, uncertainty looms over the delicate 6-day Gaza truce.
There are concerns over the resumption of the deadly fighting in Gaza, in which over 15,000 people have already lost their lives. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has made it clear the war will continue until the goal of defeating Hamas is achieved.
בתחילת המלחמה אני קבעתי 3 יעדים: חיסול החמאס, החזרת כל חטופינו ולהבטיח שעזה לעולם לא תחזור להיות איום על ישראל. 3 היעדים האלה עומדים בעינם.
Viewers, look at these visuals. They show you the scale of the destruction that has unfolded in Gaza over the last few weeks. Fears remain that such images from Gaza will resume as soon as the ceasefire ends.
The brief truce brought some relief for Gazans, many of whom were displaced amid the ongoing war. They took advantage of the truce, returned to their homes only to find rubble and debris. These Gazans now hope that the brief truce must turn into permanent ceasefire.
احنا هذا الهدنه اللي اعطونا اياها الهدنه انسانيه، بسموها هدنه انسانيه. هذه هدنه ولدت فينا الوجع، زرعت فينا الحزن. يعني روحنا على بيوتنا لقينا بيوتنا كلها، بيتي انا عريس متزوج لي شهر، بيتي كله رايح، بيت اخوي، بيت عمي، بيت جاري، كل بيوت يعني دمار. يعني هذه الهدنه ما بتلزمنا، احنا بدنا هدنه، بدنا وقف اطلاق نار بالكامل، يعني ما بدنا كل يوم هدنه.
Meanwhile, calls have also been growing for a permanent ceasefire within the international community. Making a fresh appeal, the United Nations General Secretary on Wednesday said that Gaza is in the midst of a widespread humanitarian catastrophe and civilians must be protected.
80% of Gaza's people have now been forced from their homes. This growing population is being pushed towards an ever smaller area of southern Gaza, and of course, nowhere is safe in Gaza.
The comments come as the World Health Organization once again highlighted Gaza's vulnerable healthcare situation. WHO chief stressed that the war-torn enclave faces an increased risk of epidemics and risk of infectious diseases.
Only 15 of Gaza's 36 hospitals are still functioning at all, but are completely overwhelmed. For example, European Gaza Hospital is currently operating at triple its capacity. Of the 25 hospitals north of the Wadi Gaza, before the conflict began, only 3 are functioning at the most basic level, but they lack fuel, water, and food. The remaining health system capacity must be protected, supported, and expanded.
Demands for a permanent ceasefire have also been made by people across the world, marking solidarity with members of South African political parties, civil society organizations and other supporters have marched through the streets of Johannesburg on Wednesday, urging the fighting to end.
We will not allow it. We can't stop them. All over the world, millions and millions are coming out and saying, no, stop it. We will boycott and isolate Israel until it hurts them. And we stand by the Palestinian people.
Now, as the extended truce for a temporary ceasefire remains uncertain, world leaders are trying to find ways to extend this truce by any means that they can.
Definitely, that is one effort which is being made from all fronts. Now, humanitarian aid needs to come into Gaza as well, and that is again something that world leaders are working towards. Diplomacy is in full swing here. In a press conference at the United Nations, Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan and Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan stressed the need for a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas.
So we are here to make a clear statement that a truce is not enough. What is needed is a ceasefire. What is needed is a credible peace, and a peace that lasts and that allows the Palestinians and the Israelis to live side by side in two states. Anything else will result in continuing crisis in the region. Thank you.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi spoke after addressing the Security Council on West Asia. Wang called for a comprehensive and lasting ceasefire in Gaza.
We welcome the humanitarian pause reached last week, but peace cannot be circumcised and there should be a time limiter ceasefire. The window of opportunity once opened should not be closed again. The fighting once stopped should not flare up again. We cannot allow the humanitarian disaster to continue or tolerate even more suffering or losses among the civilians.
He further added that the two-state solution is the only way to fundamentally resolve the Palestinian question.
The two-state solution is the only way to fundamentally resolve the Palestinian question.
Meanwhile, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, while calling for an expansion of the current pause in the Israel-Hamas conflict, said that Gazans are in the midst of an epic humanitarian catastrophe.
The people of Gaza are in the midst of an epic humanitarian catastrophe before the eyes of the world. We must not look away. Intense negotiations are taking place to prolong the truce, which we strongly welcome. But we believe we need a true humanitarian ceasefire.
The United States has taken part in building the negotiations for the extension of the ceasefire. U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, said that her country is hopeful that the truce in Gaza can be extended and that the decision lies in the hands of Hamas.
We're hopeful that the truce can be extended, but as I said in the Council, this is all in the hands of Hamas. The Israelis have said if they continue to release 10 hostages a day, they will extend by a day. So it truly is, in their hands, but I do think there is a potential for that, and we're actively working to extend the deal.
Meanwhile, Palestinian Foreign Minister Riyad al-Maliki said that the Palestinian people are faced with an existential threat amid the conflict.
We thank Qatar and Egypt for their efforts that led to a truce. But a truce must become a ceasefire, a permanent ceasefire. The massacres cannot be allowed to resume. This is not a war. This is a carnage that nothing and no one can justify. It must be brought to an end.
On the other hand, Israel's ambassador to the UN, Gilad Erdan, said that anyone who supports a ceasefire basically supports Hamas' continued reign of terror in Gaza. Negotiations between Israel and Hamas to extend the Gaza truce were overshadowed at the last minute on Wednesday by an unconfirmed claim by Hamas that a family of Israeli hostages, including a 10-month-old baby, had been killed.
And of course, we'll continue to bring you all the developments on that front. But in breaking development just coming in from the United States, former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger has died at the age of 100. Kissinger served as America's top diplomat and national security advisor during the Nixon and Ford administrations. This is the news that's just coming in. Of course, we'll continue to bring you all the developments. Now, in a statement, Kissinger's associates, a political consulting firm he founded, said that the German-born former diplomat died at his home in Connecticut. This happened just a few moments ago.
Definitely a big figure there in the United States. During his decades-long career, Kissinger played a key and sometimes controversial role in U.S. foreign and security policy. We've just got news that, of course, he's passed away.
Prize winner, of course, there's big news that is coming in. This happened just a few minutes ago.
Diplomat, political scientist, geopolitical consultant. He played a major role in U.S. politics all through the years.
Right, and he's been has an active past in his centenary, attending meetings in the White House, publishing a book on leadership styles as well, testifying before a Senate committee about the nuclear threat posed by North Korea. Now, in July 2023, he made a surprise visit to Beijing as well to meet Chinese President Xi Jinping. Now, this is the latest that we're getting. Henry Kissinger, a Nobel Peace Prize winner and a diplomatic powerhouse whose service under two presidents left an indelible mark on U.S. foreign policy, died just a few moments ago, as per Kissinger Associates Incorporated.
Kissinger was a Jewish refugee who fled Nazi Germany with his family in 1938 and has been in the United States. He excelled academically and, of course, graduated and reached different heights, completely scaled newer heights in U.S. politics, a major figure in U.S. all through the decades, not just the years.
Now, Kissinger's reign as the prime architect of U.S. foreign policy waned with Nixon's resignation in 1974. He continued, however, to be a diplomatic force under U.S. President Gerald Ford and offered strong opinions throughout the rest of his life. Of course, as we mentioned, he's been an active figure in U.S. politics, while many hailed Kissinger for his brilliance, broad experience. Of course,
he was a controversial Nobel Peace Prize winner as well, diplomatic powerhouse to say the least, whose service under two presidents left an indelible mark on U.S. foreign policy.
Now, from what we do know, so far, Kissinger died at his home in Connecticut, as per Kissinger Associates.
Kissinger had been active past his centenary, attending meetings in the White House, publishing a book on leadership styles and testifying before a Senate committee about the nuclear threat posed by North Korea. Even
also
in July,
important to know that he developed, in fact, the practice of shuttle diplomacy to bring a halt to the 1973 Yom Kippur War, of course, in the backdrop of the Israel-Hamas war that we're witnessing currently. This is an important and noteworthy contribution of Kissinger's as well. And he developed, as I mentioned earlier, the practice of shuttle diplomacy to bring a halt to the 1973 Yom Kippur War.
Earlier this year, in July, he had made a surprise visit to Beijing to meet Chinese President Xi Jinping. And also to let you know, in the 1970s, he had a hand in many of the epoch-changing global events of the decade while serving as Secretary of State under Republican President Richard Nixon. He has been a former U.S. Secretary of State. Everyone knows how important that position is for U.S. politics and global politics. The German-born Jewish refugees' efforts led to the diplomatic opening of China, landmark U.S.-Soviet arms control talks, expanded ties between Israel and its Arab neighbors, and the Paris Peace Accords with North Vietnam. Kissinger's reign as the prime architect of U.S. foreign policy waned with Nixon's resignation in 1974. Still, he continued to be a diplomatic force under President Gerald Ford and to offer strong opinions throughout the rest of his life. His quotes are still used all over the world, and he never minced his words regarding
talking about
America
some
or
of the
others.
views about Kissinger as well, Ford in fact called Kissinger a super secretary of the state. Now, this is the latest that we're getting right now. This is the news alert that's coming in from the United States. Kissinger died at his home in Connecticut, as per Kissinger Associates. Of course, we'll continue to bring you all the developments on this as and when they do come in. This is what we do know so far. A Nobel Peace Prize winner, diplomatic powerhouse, Kissinger died a few moments ago in Connecticut.
He was born in 1923. He's passed away in 2023 at the age of 100. He turned 100 in May earlier this year. He was born in Germany and moved to the United States with his family in 1938 before the Nazi campaign to exterminate European Jews. Anglicizing his name to Henry Kissinger, became a neutralized U.S. citizen in 1943, served in the army in Europe in World War II and went to Harvard University on scholarship, earning a master's degree in 1952 and a doctorate in 1954. He was on Harvard's faculty for the next 17 years.
Now, in 1973, in addition to his role as National Security Advisor, Kissinger was named Secretary of State. Intensifying Arab-Israeli conflict launched Kissinger on his first, as I mentioned, shuttle mission. That is the brand that he, in fact, developed, shuttle diplomacy, which eventually would help bring a halt to the 1973 Yom Kippur War.
This is a breaking development, viewers, of this coming in from the United States. Former Secretary of State for the US, Henry Kissinger, has died at the age of 100. He was born in May 1923 and turned 100 earlier this year. His passing has just been announced. This is breaking news coming in from the US. And of course, Henry Kissinger, we have a lot of file footage playing for you on the screens. This is his life. He's been a rather controversial figure as well for a lot of his quotes. And this is the news which has come in at the moment.
Of course, we'll continue to bring you the latest on this and all the developments on the Israel-Hamas front as well. But now we're slipping into a short break.
Don't go anywhere. This is World DNA. We will be back after this short break. On the other side, viewers, the death of a Chinese businessman has sparked controversy. Entrepreneur Cheng Yong committed suicide as he was mired in bribery case. We will get you all the details on that.
Also on the other side, this year's COP28 in Dubai officially has begun. This and more right after the short break. Do stay tuned.
Israel woke up to a barrage of thousands of rockets fired from the Gaza Strip.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
Hostilities have broken out between Israel and Palestine, and the tensions that had been gathering steam over the course of the last several weeks and months.
The siren has gone off. I don't know if you can hear in the background what's going on. I'm going into the shelter now. So it's a very, very serious situation here across Israel. It's a state of emergency.
The United States stands with Israel.
Well, we are starting this broadcast with a developing story from West Asia, where Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says Hamas has launched a war against the state of Israel.
It's easy to tell you a flat story. It's easy to show you what's happening around the world. We do the difficult part.
This weapon has been banned, but the US, Ukraine and Russia do not find the bombs problematic.
We also tell you why what's happening.
A new drug is making a difference in the fight against Alzheimer's. This medicine helps slow down a patient.
Welcome back to World DNA. Thank you so much for staying with us. So far on the show, we've gotten you all the latest developments from the Israel-Hamas front, where in the 6th day of the extended truce, 16 more hostages were freed in exchange for 30 Palestinian prisoners.
Now, there is a lot of diplomacy at play. World powers are at play. Everyone is trying to ensure that this truce is extended. Of course, we will be tracking all the developments coming in from the Israel-Hamas front. This is World DNA. First, let's get you started with all that is happening around the globe. The headlines.
Former United States Secretary of State Henry Kissinger passes away at his Connecticut home, aged 100.
Hamas claims 10-month-old baby, Israel's youngest hostage, reportedly killed in Gaza. Bombing alongside mother and brother. Israel's IDF examining Hamas claim.
As part of Group 6, Israel frees 30 Palestinian prisoners early on Thursday, soon after Hamas hands over 16 hostages to Red Cross in Gaza, including 10 Israelis, 4 Thais and 2 Russians.
Several Indian states resort to overhauling their medical infrastructure in view of mysterious pneumonia outbreak in China.
Following high-octane campaign, Indian state of Telangana goes to polls today. State set for voting to elect 119 upcoming state legislature members.
Record 14-time European champions Real Madrid secure the top spot in Champions League Group C after defeating second-place Napoli 4-2.
He's done it again. What? And it could get the back from Nico Paz. Oh, he scored! What a moment! Look at that face.
Now, staying on with the news alert that's just coming in and breaking development from the United States, former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger has died aged 100.
Well, Kissinger served as America's top diplomat and national security advisor as well during the Nixon and Ford administrations. In a statement, Kissinger Associates, a political consulting firm he founded, said that the German-born former diplomat died at his home in Connecticut during his decades-long career. Kissinger played a key and sometimes controversial role in U.S. foreign and security policy.
As the Secretary of State, he was known for pioneering a policy of détente with the Soviet Union and promoting an open-door policy towards China. He also is credited with eventually extricating America from the Vietnam War. Kissinger's influence also extended to another Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, who once wrote in the Washington Post that she relied on his counsel.
Until the end, his political philosophy remained pragmatic. America would not be true to itself if it abandoned its essential idealism. This is a quote. He wrote this in his book, World Order, at age 91.
Now, for more on the passing of Kissinger, our principal diplomatic correspondent Siddhant Sibal is joining us on the broadcast. Siddhant, thank you so much for joining us. Of course, big news coming in from the United States. What can you tell us?
Well, 100 years is a long time, and Henry Kissinger, his legacy is something that will be remembered. Now, in South Asia, he won't be remembered very fondly, especially in India and Bangladesh. Remember, in 1971 war, he played a key role, and remember, the Americans were at that time allies of Islamabad. Also, according to State Department archives, how he, of course, reached out to the Chinese to build up forces along the frontier with India. But of course, his role with the establishment of a proper relationship between Washington and Beijing will be seen as last century's biggest outcome in terms of how both the big two, as they are known today, China and US, established their relationship. His name, of course, has cropped up in many coups from Southeast Asia to Latin America, from Vietnam War to, of course, situation in Argentina in last century. So essentially, whether one hates him or loves him, he, of course, changed the world and changed it in a different manner as we see today.
Siddhant, now there have been several quotes of Henry Kissinger which have been doing the rounds since decades, not even just years. You know, just this one, it's a pity both sides can't lose. This was his comment on the Iran-Iraq war in 1980-1988, where we all know US had an important role to play. There was another one which I'm just taking from where he said, America has no permanent friends or enemies, only interests. And these are things which have been true over the years. Talk to us about what his inputs were and his reading was of America.
Well, I think his most popular quote was, America has no friends and no enemies, and this is something that is even talked today. But essentially, one of the biggest thing he will be remembered will be for the opening up to China, how he traveled to Islamabad. Pakistan played a key role back then, and of course from Islamabad he went to China, and that led to the visit of the then US President Nixon to China, and that opened up the relationship. That time the Chinese and the Soviet Union weren't doing very well as well in terms of relationship, and that continues. His legacy in Vietnam War is another that is remembered globally. And now, of course, he played the important role. But essentially, it's South Asia, if we talk about, where while the Indians and the Bangladeshis won't have very fond memories of him, it's the Pakistanis who will be remembering him, given that he played his role in terms of saving the then West Pakistan. These were the words he told President Nixon back then when Pakistan lost East Pakistan, which is Bangladesh today, and India, of course, played an important role.
All right. Well, Siddhant, thank you so much for bringing us the latest on this. We will, of course, continue to track this closely through the day as well.
Moving further, now a high-level Indian inquiry committee will look into the inputs provided by the United States on the alleged nexus between organized criminals, terrorists and others.
According to the Ministry of External Affairs, the team was formed on the 18th of November. India will take follow-up action based on the findings of the inquiry committee.
And this comes after the United States shared security concerns with India during the recently held bilateral meet. It had also revealed that relevant departments were already examining the issue.
This development comes after the Financial Times reported that the United States had reportedly thwarted the attempt of killing Khalistani terrorist Gurpatwant Singh Pannu on its soil. Reports claim that the United States warned India on a suspected role in the plan to eliminate Pannu. For India, Pannu is a designated terrorist and a leader of the banned extremist outfit Sikhs for Justice.
Earlier, Canada also alleged India's role in the murder of a Khalistani terrorist, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, in Vancouver in June. India has termed the allegations absurd and politically motivated.
And now, in a court in New York, charges were announced in what the documents claim was a foiled plot to assassinate a US citizen. It is alleged that an Indian government employee directed a plot from India to murder the US-based Khalistani terrorist. Now, the court documents allege the role of an Indian government employee in connection of a failed plot to kill Khalistani terrorists. A federal district court judge will determine any sentence after considering the US sentencing guidelines, of course, and other statutory factors. Now, death of a Chinese businessman has sparked controversy in the country. Entrepreneur Cheng Yong committed suicide as he was mired in a bribery case.
Well, in his suicide note, he mentioned the enormous pressure he was going through as part of a stringent investigation by Chinese authorities. Cheng Yong was the president of a private company. In the past, he was also a member of the Chinese Communist Party. China's Discipline Inspection Commission was investigating him for taking $1.1 million in bribery from a government official. And Yong denied all the accusations and jumped to his death after facing the intense probe.
In a suicide note, he said that the interrogation room was unbearable and that he'd made a hasty confession to end the questioning. He added that he was under a lot of stress during the 3-day questioning, during which he could only sleep for 2 hours. His death has been drawing attention in China and is among the most searched on Chinese social media.
Netizens are questioning the methods of China's Discipline Inspection Commission while conducting such investigations. They are raising concerns whether the confession Yong made was forced or induced, while some are also highlighting the ties between businessmen and politicians and the various cases of corruption in China, and are even pointing out that Yong might have chosen suicide due to fears of further investigation, and that his suicide note was just a way for him to cover things up. Now, this year's COP28 in Dubai has officially begun. So far this year was marked by record heat, drought and other extreme weather conditions as well.
Leaders at the summit ready to discuss climate change solutions and sustainable developments. The President of the United Nations General Assembly, Dennis Francis, laid out the message that he will be taking on his forthcoming visit to the United Arab Emirates to take part in the COP28.
I would like to...
Messages I will take with me to the COP.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will visit UAE to attend the UN Climate Conference in Dubai starting this week. His participation will underline the country's commitment to the issue of climate change. Modi will be in UAE for 2 days from November 30th to the 1st of December.
Now, apart from fossil fuels, issues to headline the summit will include methane emissions and oil and gas imports. More than 150 countries signed on to the United States and EU-led global methane pledge in 2021, promising to slash their methane emissions 30% by the end of the decade.
Here is how this can possibly be achieved. The EU has agreed to set methane emission limits on Europe's oil and gas imports from 2030. The US is finalizing its own rules. Canada is expected to target the sector with a proposal requiring a 70% cut in methane emissions by 2030. China, the world's biggest emitter of greenhouse gases, has pledged to include methane in the country's 2035 National Climate Plan.
The World Bank is in the process of launching a new fund with backing from independent oil companies, among others. COP28 host, the United Arab Emirates, wants to see national regulations over methane-emitting sectors and financial support for developing countries. It also is calling on the oil and gas industry to phase out its methane emissions by 2030.
Meanwhile, Pope Francis has cancelled his upcoming trip to Dubai for the COP28 climate talks, citing concerns over his recent flu-like symptoms. Francis' address to world leaders at COP28 would have come just weeks after he published a text in October, warning that the world was collapsing and near the breaking point due to global warming.
Now, retail giant Walmart is strategically diversifying its sourcing, reducing dependence on China and turning towards India.
Well, according to Bill of Leading Figures, between January and August this year, Walmart's US imports from India skyrocketed to 25% compared to a mere 2% back in 2018. Conversely, the share of imports from China dipped from 80% in 2018 to 60% during the same period in 2023. This calculated move signifies a broader strategy to mitigate rising costs and geopolitical tensions. But how does this align with Walmart's commitment to India and its $10 billion import target?
Walmart's accelerated growth in India since 2018, marked by a significant stake in Flipkart, aligns with its commitment to import $10 billion worth of goods annually by 2027. Beyond the numbers, factors such as India's growing workforce, technological advancements, and a newfound confidence in its manufacturing industry are driving this shift. Meanwhile, the rising cost of shipping goods from China and lessons learned during the COVID-19 pandemic are contributing to this recalibration of global supply chains.
All right, it's over to technology next. Cyber attacks are becoming increasingly common and more sophisticated around the world.
Now, in the latest, of course, we've been tracking cyber attacks, and in the latest, Password Authentication has admitted that hackers have stolen information of all users of its customer support system.
Well, the Okta network breach took place 2 months ago. At the time of the incident, Okta had said that only 1% of the customers were affected by the breach. However, the company has now admitted that the hackers accessed the data of all Okta customers during the attack.
Now, Okta manages user authentication services for thousands of institutions. It offers companies identity management tools such as single sign-in and multi-factor authentication for secure website logins. The company has more than 18,000 corporate clients. This includes Microsoft-backed OpenAI, FedEx and T-Mobile, among others.
Okta has now notified its customers through an official letter. In the letter, the identity management company shared that a report containing the names and email addresses of all Okta customer support system users was stolen during the cyber attack.
As a result, Okta has warned that its customers may face increased risk of attacks and urged them to use strong multi-factor authentication. Now, this is not the first time that Okta was cyber attacked. Last year, the company suffered 2 security breaches as well. On to news now from the world of sports. The final event of the 2023 PGA Tour season begins later today with the returning Tiger Woods.
Well, he's headlining the elite 20-man field at the Hero World Challenge. There are 11 major winners in the field and also 4 members of Europe's victorious Ryder Cup squad.
Anticipation has been building ever since tournament co-host Woods announced his return a couple of weeks ago. Woods has not played since withdrawing midway from the Masters back in April. The 15-time major winner underwent ankle surgery immediately after the Masters and has admitted to being rusty ahead of his latest comeback attempt. This will be Woods' 6th start since that car accident outside of LA back in 2021, which nearly cost him his life.
I'm not concerned at all about walking it. It's more the, as I said, I don't have any of the ankle pain that I had, with the hardware that's been placed in my foot. That's all gone, but it's the other parts of my body. My knee hurts, my back. The forces go somewhere else. Just like when I had my back fused, the forces got to go somewhere. So it's up the chain. So as I said, I'm just as curious as with all of you, what's going to happen. I haven't done this in a while.
Players are competing for an enhanced $4.5 million in prize money. Two of the 4 major winners this year, Open champion Brian Harman and US Open champion Wyndham Clark, are in the field. FedEx Cup champion Victor Hovland has won the tournament for the last 2 years and is bidding to become the first man to win this tournament 3 years in a row. World number 1, Scottie Scheffler, has finished runner-up behind him both those times, and like most players is coming into the tournament after an extended break.
Yeah, I think it's good just to see where my game's at. I wouldn't say I'm as prepared for this event as I would be for a regular tour event, just being my first tournament coming back from a pretty extended break. So just looking to kind of, get things running again, get my feet wet out on the course, and just play some tournament golf.
Golfing legend Tiger Woods might be the main attraction in Albany, but there is plenty of other star power as well at the event.
3-time major winner Jordan Spieth is part of the field for the PGA Tour event, and WION Sports editor Digvijay Singh Deo caught up with the 2014 Hero World Challenge winner Jordan Spieth ahead of the opening day. Listen in.
It's been a fascinating year, both on and off the course in professional golf. 3-time major winner Jordan Spieth has been involved as a player, as well as being a leading voice in the sport. He joins me now on the sidelines of the Hero World Challenge out here in sunny Nassau. Thank you for your time, Jordan. Now, obviously, when Tiger Woods plays, there's a lot of buzz, but when Tiger plays after a long time, there is a lot of frenzy, if that's the right word?
Yeah, I think that's probably the right word, yeah. And it's great. It's great for us. It's great for the sport. And the fact that he says he's playing without pain means that there's hope that there's going to be less of a break next time.
Let's talk about you. I was telling you that I was there in Orlando when you won your first Hero World Challenge. That was the time the tournament got rebranded as Hero World Challenge. There's a lot of talk in professional golf about elevated tournaments. But this Hero World Challenge is actually an elevated tournament in itself because of the limited field, the kind of players who are playing out there. Does that really push you hard each time you come here because of the caliber of players you're up against?
Yeah, I think, it's it's an elite field for being such a small field, and then the timing of it is great because we get an opportunity to kind of try out some of the stuff that we've been working on in the off season, and we still have then a few weeks before we start now the new FedEx Cup season that starts after the new year. So it's a nice, really nice tournament because you get to play against the best in the world while having an opportunity to kind of come off of a break, knock off a little bit of the rust, and see if you can work your way into contention and see where your game's truly at.
Perhaps enjoy the conditions as well, and the casinos and all of that. But you've joined the PGA Tour's policy board now. You've been there before. You've sort of served multiple times in the past. But the game is sort of at the crossroads at the moment. So how do you balance your personal goals with the role that you have, because you're looking after the interests now of hundreds of other players who may not be having that voice which you have? So it's a voice for change.
Yeah, I think that I can speak for the other player directors as well in saying that, it takes enough time right now versus the last time I served to where you certainly are spending less time doing other things, whether that's jeopardizing a little bit of time with your family or jeopardizing time with the game. It is a bit consuming right now, but it has to be. It's as you mentioned, a very important time in professional golf, and trying to make the right moves representing the entire membership is really the goal, and all the players being kind of united as one on the board with the collective interest of the entire membership in the front of mind is our goal. And it's a pivotal time that I think we all are willing to make a minor sacrifice for right now.
Time now to take a look at what's happening in the world of entertainment.
Rap mogul Sean Diddy Combs has stepped down as the chairman of Revolt, the TV network he had co-founded in the wake of the 3 sexual assault lawsuits against him. Revolt clarified on their social media handles that Combs had no day-to-day role in the business. An R&B artist was the first to accuse Combs of rape and abuse. The woman settled the lawsuit a few days after she made the revelation. However, 2 other women have come forward with accusations. The rapper called their motive a money grab and vehemently denied all allegations leveled against him. The remaining 4 members of K-pop supergroup BTS will begin their military service in mid-December, joining the 3 who are already serving. The group's main rapper and leader RM and vocalist V will enlist on December 11th. The group's main rapper and leader RM and vocalist V will enlist on December 11th, while Jimin and Jungkook will follow suit the next day. The 7-member group is on temporary break while members carry out South Korea's mandatory military service. Ranbir Kapoor's Tara Animal has been raising eyebrows with its explosive trailer, and now it's gotten in trouble with the Indian Censor Board. According to reports, a lot of obscene language in the film has been edited out. Not just that, intimate scenes featuring actor Rashmika Mandanna and Ranbir Kapoor have also been removed. Interestingly, this move has been made despite the film getting an adults-only certificate from the Central Board of Film Certification. Animal is set to hit theatres tomorrow. The 54th edition of the International Film Festival of India has finally come to an end. Persian movie Endless Borders took home the award for the best film. Season 2 of Panchayat earned the prize for the best web series, a category that was introduced this year. Filmmaker Rishabh Shetty received the Special Jury Award for the 2022 film Kantara, and Hollywood veteran actor Michael Douglas was honoured with the Satyajit Ray Lifetime Achievement Award.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of World DNA.
Don't go anywhere. News and updates continue on the other side as WION World is One continues.